Holocaust survivor who is suffering and in desperate need.
The Charlie Kirk Show starts now.
So Democrats are getting destroyed now among young voters.
That's right.
I do think there was, even as the idea of the rising Democratic majority had become a little discredited in 2016 and 2020, I do think Democrats believed that these young voters were eventually going to save them. Right. That this was a last gasp of something. That if Donald Trump couldn't run these numbers up among seniors and have millennials really coming into their voting power, Gen Z coming in, that was going to be the end of this Republican Party.
Right.
And that just completely false.
Yeah, I mean,
it might be the beginning of this Republican Party.
You know, I have to admit, I was one of those liberals 4 years ago, and it seems like I was wrong. On the bottom, we have age, and at the top, we have the gender gap in support between women and men, and, you know, for support for Kamala Harris. And so what you can see is that, you know, for voters over 30, the gender gap was fairly stable at around 10%, which is roughly where it's been in American politics.
And voters over 75, it's even lower.
That's right. You know,
fairly low gender gap among older voters.
But what's crazy is if you look at people who are under the age of 30, the gender gap has exploded. If you look at 18-year-olds, 18-year-old men were 23 percentage points more likely to support, you know, Donald Trump than 18-year-old women, which is just completely unprecedented in American politics.
Is that abortion?
I think it's too early to say exactly what the cause is. What's interesting is that this is happening in other countries as well. Obviously, different countries have different political systems, but I've seen similar patterns in Canada, in the UK, in Norway. One of the things you can see here is if you just look at 18-year-olds, 18-year-old women of color are the only of the four that actually, voted that Harris won. Trump narrowly won, non-white men.
So I do find this part of this chart shocking. I sometimes talk about narrative violations, and I think if we knew anything about Donald Trump 8 years ago, it's that young people did not like him. But if you look at this chart among white men who were 75 years old, supported Kamala Harris at a significantly higher rate than white men who are 20 years old.
That's exactly right.
That's a real shift.
It is a real shift. This is the thing I am the most shocked by, I think, in the last 4 years, is that young people have gone from being the most progressive generation since the baby boomers, and maybe in some ways more so, to becoming potentially the most conservative.
Black women cannot be racist to white women. Are you kidding me?
Sorry?
That makes no sense.
Sorry?
Black women cannot be racist to white women. Do you not understand that?
Oh, yes, they can.
You don't have the intellectual
yes, they can.
To understand that?
Oh, yes, they can. And you've been racist to me.
That's very much
You've been racist to me, a white man, by saying I'm a race baiter. Yeah.
How am I racist to you? I'm black. I can't be racist.
You call me a race baiter with no evidence.
To me.
Do you agree, is the United States in a constitutional crisis? Yes, I do, Kristen, and democracy is at risk. Look, Donald Trump is a lawless, angry man. He thinks he should be king. He thinks he should do whatever he wants, regardless of the law. And he thinks judges should just listen to him. Now, we have to fight that back in every single way.
Wait a minute. We don't want to be barreling towards a constitutional crisis. We don't want to be barreling towards a tyranny of the judiciary. That's exactly what's happening here. You have to remember, we have these three distinct, separate, equal branches of government. And when you have the judiciary, which is not beholden to anybody, trying to rise over both the executive and the legislative, that's there where I think it becomes a problem.
California is projected to lose 3 seats, New York 2, also going to lose a seat, Minnesota, Oregon, Rhode Island, Illinois, all blue states. Who's getting these? Texas, Florida, Idaho, and Utah. I mean, this looks like game over, and the reason why people are voting with their feet is a lot of what your book is about. Taxes and regulation. People are leaving these kind of states for places where they're not, they feel the heavy breath of government on them. It's not that hard for Democrats to understand this, but they seem to be incapable of doing anything about it.
Every day, there's a battle for your mind raging. Information coming from every angle with the will to deceive. Fear not. You found the place for truth. The voice of a generation that still has the will to believe in the greatest country in the history of the world. This is the Charlie Kirk Show. Buckle up. Here we go.
Okay, everybody. Happy Monday. Radio stations across the country. Honored to be with you as always. Democrats wake up and smell the data. This weekend, I had the opportunity to listen to the entirety of the Ezra Klein Show podcast. Ezra Klein is a very smart, honest liberal. He's been incredibly critical of the Democrat Party since the election in November. Ezra Klein previously created a thing called Wonk Blog at the Washington Post. Later, he founded Vox alongside people like Matt Iglesias. He perfectly represented the white male millennial era of the Obama era. It was very smug. It was overconfident, in part because they thought that left-wing victory was completely inevitable. If you listen to Pod Save America, it is 4 of those guys that just talk about how right they are the entire time. After the 2008 election and the subsequent 2012 election of Barack Obama, people like Ezra Klein looked at the numbers and said, old people are conservative, young people are liberal, so the future will be liberal. That is a very fair and honest analysis. There's one thing they did not count on. They did not count on the grittiness and the hustle of Turning Point USA. They did not count on the millions of students that actually wanted to have a future and the ascendant political force of President Donald Trump. Now, Ezra Klein, who is the premier explainer of things on the left, is stuck trying to explain why that didn't happen. So he had a Democrat statistician by the name of David Shore on his program. The reason we are leading with this today, everybody, is that there is a generational restructuring happening. It's so obvious to us on this program. We've been warning about this for the last couple of years, not just warning about it, celebrating it. I've been coming in the chair here on this program on Real America's Voice and on the Salem Radio Network, telling you guys there's something happening on these campuses. There's something happening with the next generation. The crowds we're drawing, the views that we are garnering, and reporters would scoff at it. Oh, come on. What are you saying? You're going to win young people? And Democrats took the next generation so for granted. And what is remarkable is that it is sticking. This is not just a Trump phenomenon. This is a widespread restructuring, a widespread realignment. By the way, if you want to know why Democrats lost, here's one of several actual explanations. In 2020, David Shore was fired from the left-wing analytics company he worked at because he made a tweet saying that George Floyd riots might hurt Democrats politically. The very same guy that we're about to watch. Now, this is something that we've been saying on this program for quite some time. We are ahead of the curve here. We see the trajectory and we lead it. We are the leading indicator here on this program. And all of you in this audience understand that we are not followers. We are pace setters, the tip of the spear, understanding that the zeitgeist will be made here on this program. Ezra Klein in the New York Times, they follow the lead of the Charlie Kirk Show. They follow the lead of War Room. They follow the lead of what we are doing with our Turning Point USA groups on campus. And they're processing information saying, what do you mean the New York Times doesn't set the trend anymore? It doesn't. The New York Times is reporting on months-old data. Now, the significance of this, everybody, is that you are dealing with a completely different political climate than any time that you have been alive since Ronald Reagan. In fact, if you take an average 20-something voter that is a young man and an average 75-year-old man, and we've said this on this program, and it drives some baby boomers a little bit nuts, and of course this audience exempt from that, the paradigm shift is so remarkable that the 20-year-old is more conservative than the 75-year-old. Let me say that again. That the 20-year-old is more conservative than the 75-year-old. Don't believe me? Here is Ezra Klein and David Shore, who are pulling their hair out, going through all of the numbers, trying to process how on earth is it that the young men, the next generation, are more conservative than their grandparents. Now, let me just take a pause before I play this piece of tape. If me mentioning that bothers you, it should actually give you great hope. If you're 75 and you find out that your colleagues that are boomers are more liberal than your grandkids, it actually means that you're going to be handing off a country that is more conservative. Good job. You guys did well. A good legacy. Yes, your fellow boomers are trending left, but your grandkids are taking a hard right turn. There you could see the tens of thousands of students that attend our outdoor campus events. Tens of thousands. We don't just react to culture. You are part of a movement that is shaping it, creating it, and pushing it forward. And it was delicious this weekend listening to smug man Ezra Klein have to explain to the millions of New York Times elite academics what we have helped make happen. Play cut 75.
One of the things you can see here is if you just look at 18-year-olds, 18-year-old women of color are the only of the four that actually, voted that Harris won. Trump narrowly won, non-white men.
So I do find this part of this chart shocking. I sometimes talk about narrative violations, and I think if we knew anything about Donald Trump 8 years ago, it's that young people did not like him. But if you look at this chart among white men who were 75 years old, supported Kamala Harris at a significantly higher rate than white men who are 20 years old.
That's exactly right.
That's a real shift.
It is a real shift. This is the thing I am the most shocked by, I think, in the last 4 years, is that young people have gone from being the most progressive generation since the baby boomers, and maybe in some ways more so, to becoming potentially the most conservative.
The most conservative. I have no idea who would have made that a stated goal. You're telling me for the first time. You see, what you're witnessing there is a PhD left-wing struggle session as they're trying to go through the data, and they're being honest in front of the audience. And they're one of the few people on the left that actually goes into the data. And let me repeat again that an average 20-year-old white man is far more conservative than their 75-year-old grandparent. And it makes all the sense in the world. Number one, look at the information that they're consuming. The average 20-year-old is watching the Charlie Kirk Show. They're listening to the Charlie Kirk Show podcast. They're consuming Matt Walsh on TikTok. They are watching the influencer army that we have helped assemble. The 75-year-old boomer man is more likely to watch cable news. They're more likely to watch NBC and ABC. Young people aren't watching the news. They're getting it in 10-second sound bites, of which we are dominant. For those skeptical of polls and sampling size, David Shore's study, which you just saw in that video, is based on 26 million online responses collected over the course of 2024 and filtered to adjust to oddities of modern polling. This trend, if it continues, everybody, is one of the greatest points of optimism that we see on the horizon. And this is why we are doing more campus tours than ever before. This is why we are starting more high school chapters and starting more college chapters. This is the sleeper narrative underneath everything. It undergirds the entire society. The subterranean truth that we are living through right now is that there is a political earthquake that you have been praying for, and it is sticking, and it is only continuing. It is not just a Donald Trump phenomenon. It is a right-wing revolution that is happening from the youth to the old, from the bottom up, from the students to the elders, from the Gen Xers, the Gen Zers, to the boomers. And it's happening across all racial demographics. And it stands to possibly put the Democrat Party in a minoritarian position for a generation. Rough Greens, ever see your dog slowing down or having health issues and wonder, what can I do to make them better? Well, I encourage you guys to add Rough Greens to your dog's food for 90 days, and you'll see what changes your dog has. Invented by naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black, Rough Greens wants to invite you and your puppy the Rough Greens 90-day challenge. In the first 30 days, you'll see shinier coats and increased energy. At 90 days, you'll have better digestion, reduced inflammation, improved heart health, and you might have even reduced their cancer risk. Fetch a free Jumpstart trial bag for your dog today. Go to ruffgreens.com and use promo code Kirk. That is ruffgreens.com, promo code Kirk, and just add a scoop of Rough Greens. That is ruffgreens.com, promo code Kirk. We'll be right back, everybody. were never given a
Democracy lives in light. The Charlie Kirk Show.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. I want to tell you about YRefi. That is YRefi.com, YREFY.com. Did you know that private student loan debt totals over $300 billion? About $45 billion of that is labeled as distressed. They provide you with a custom loan payment based on your ability to pay. YRefi does not care what your credit score is. Many clients are not able to make the minimum monthly payment on their private student loans when they first come in contact with YRefi. If you go to YRefi.com, that is YREFY.com, you can read testimonials from other people who have been where you are and how they have escaped. May not be available in all 50 states. They've been amazing supporters of our campus tour. So check it out. Bad credit is accepted. Go to YRefi.com. That is YREFY.com. That's YRefi.com. Can you imagine being debt-free and not living under this burden anymore? The first step is contacting YRefi. Go to YREFY.com. Part of this program is brought to you by YRefi. They've been great supporters of our show. May not be available in all 50 states. Go to YRefi.com, YREFY.com. We'll be right back, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. Email us, freedom@charliekirk.com. Young Hispanics, young blacks, young whites that are men are all shifting to the right. Young women are too, but not to the same extent. One of the reasons why young men are shifting to the right is the hyper-feminization of American politics, is how feminine the Democrat Party has become. When you are trying to raise young men, you learn that young men do not like taking orders, especially when it comes to discipline, from women. Now, you can complain about that. You can say it's sexist. You can say it's awful. But it's the truth. 16, 17, and 18-year-old men hesitate to take orders from women in authority. You cannot like it, but it is a fact of nature. This is why teenage boys need dads around. They need a man that they can look up to, that is able to exhibit force, that is able to put structure and rules and guidelines. And God bless single moms, but they are not able to always get the job done. This is why you need a father and a mother around when you raise a child. The same goes politically. So when a young man looks at the horizon of American politics, and on one side you have screeching women telling them to shut up, to watch your pronouns, to watch your language, young men inherently do not like taking orders from women. Men are wired this way. Now, eventually, men will help grow out of that if the women earn their respect. But 16, 17, and 18-year-old young men, they don't respond well to that. They inherently rebel. So the entire Democrat Party is wired in a way against young men's nature. Sit down and shut up. We're going to call you a racist. So young men start to gravitate towards a political party that is not hyper-feminized. In fact, who is the most alpha male, both through his language and his body posture? It's Donald Trump. So you have hyper-feminized politics of Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton and Elizabeth Warren and AOC, and then you have alpha male politics of Donald Trump. And Ezra Klein and David Shore, they don't understand any of this because they think it's all just a big policy debate. It is so much deeper than that. It's that young men don't want to take orders from women. It's obvious. You know that when you're around teenage boys. They need a man that they can trust and a man that has strength, and then they'll shut up and listen. And so what women in the Democrat Party do is they say, you're toxic, you need to be medicated, sit down and let the women handle it. They say, no, I'm going to go to the right. And they haven't even necessarily thought through all the policy implications of what it means to be a conservative. But it appeals to their reason. And the communicators are typically men that don't apologize to tyrannical left-wing politics. Play cut 76.
Democrats are getting destroyed now among young voters.
That's right.
I do think there was, even as the idea of the rising Democratic majority had become a little discredited in 2016 and 2020, I do think Democrats believed that these young voters were eventually going to save them.
Right.
That this was a last gasp of something. That if Donald Trump couldn't run these numbers up among seniors and you had millennials really coming into their voting power, Gen Z coming in, that was going to be the end of this Republican Party.
Right.
And that just completely false.
Yeah, I mean,
it might be the beginning of this Republican Party.
You know, I have to admit, I was one of those liberals 4 years ago, and it seems like I was wrong.
It's the beginning of our Republican Party. Here is the gender gap and how significant it is. Play cut 77.
In the bottom, we have age, and at the top, we have the gender gap in support between women and men, and, you know, for support for Kamala Harris. And so what you can see is that, you know, for voters over 30, the gender gap was fairly stable at around 10%, which is roughly where it's been in American politics.
And voters over 75, it's even lower.
That's right.
It's
a
fairly low gender gap among older voters.
But what's crazy is if you look at people who are under the age of 30, the gender gap has exploded. If you look at 18-year-olds, 18-year-old men were 23 percentage points more likely to support, you know, Donald Trump than 18-year-old women, which is just completely unprecedented in American politics.
Is that abortion?
I think it's too early to say exactly what the cause is. What's interesting is that this is happening in other countries as well. Obviously, different countries have different political systems, but I've seen similar patterns in Canada, in the UK, in Norway.
Is that abortion? Actually, it's not. It's just so simple. The men of the West do not want to be told what to do from women that they do not respect, that don't have their own personal lives together, screaming at them for merely existing. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to this Real America's Voice news break. I'm Terrence Bates. Calls are mounting for Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer to step down as the lead Democrat voice in the Senate. He's been facing criticism since voting for the recent continuing resolution to keep the government funded. When pressed on the issue during an appearance on Meet the Press Sunday, Schumer defended his actions and said he was staying put.
Look, I'm not stepping down. And let me just say this, Kristen. I knew when I cast my vote against against the government shutdown that it would be there'd be a lot of controversy, and there was. But let me tell you and your audience why I did it, why I felt it was so important. The CR was certainly bad, you know, the continuing resolution, but a shutdown would be 15 or 20 times worse.
The Trump administration has until tomorrow, in the meantime, to respond to a federal judge's request for details on deportation flights to El Salvador. Judge James Boasberg is specifically trying to determine if the administration violated his order to temporarily block those deportation flights. In the meantime, Venezuela says it has reached an agreement with the Trump administration for repatriation flights after turning away flights from the U.S. earlier this year, but later then doing an about-face and taking in Venezuelans who migrated to the United States and entered the country illegally. Venezuela is also taking in its residents again after many suspected Venezuelan Tren de Aragua gang members were deported to El Salvador and jailed there. Venezuelan families and lawyers have been demanding that their loved ones be released from behind bars and returned home. Thoughts and prayers are going up for former Congresswoman Mia Love and her family. Love was the first Republican black woman elected to Congress. Her family announced her death overnight. Love represented Utah's 4th congressional district from 2015 to 2019. The 49-year-old passed away following a 3-year battle with brain cancer last night. Well, it turns out President Trump's plan for peace between Ukraine and Russia is moving forward as U.S. negotiators are meeting with the Russians in Saudi Arabia to work out the terms of a partial ceasefire. Today's sit-down comes just 24 hours after the same Trump negotiating team met with a Ukrainian delegation yesterday. That's a quick check of your headlines.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. Email us as always, freedom@charliekirk.com. That is freedom@charliekirk.com. Let me see what we have here. Make the switch today, everybody, to Patriot Mobile. That's patriotmobile.com/Charlie. While we may have won this election, the fight to restore our great nation is just beginning. Now is the time to take a stand, and Patriot Mobile is leading the charge. As America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, Patriot Mobile offers a way to vote with your wallet. It's a call to action to defend our rights and freedoms. Patriot Mobile, with Patriot Mobile, you get outstanding nationwide coverage because they operate on all 3 major networks. If you have a cell phone service today, you can get amazing coverage with Patriot Mobile at patriotmobile.com/Charlie. Call 972-PATRIOT and get a free month of service with promo code Charlie. Switch to Patriot Mobile today and defend freedom with every call and text message that you make. So go to patriotmobile.com/Charlie or call 972-PATRIOT. That is patriotmobile.com/Charlie. Joining us now is Senator Rick Scott from the great state of Florida. Senator, you have some thoughts here about young men and younger voters kind of parlaying off of what I was talking about. Your thoughts?
Charlie, I loved my mom. Unfortunately, my mom passed away. I had no interest in my mom telling me what to do. I had zero. I think that's exactly what young men in this country are saying.
Yep.
Look, give us our job. Let us. We're smart enough. We can go do this on our own. We don't need the nanny state telling us how to lead our lives. We don't need to tell us what to eat, where to work, any of this stuff. So just give us an opportunity to go live our dreams. And so I think it's as simple, to me, it's as simple as that. I am sick and tired of how big government has gotten, and you can't get a permit to build a business, to build a house, to do anything because of local, state, and federal government.
I completely agree. And so for a young 17 and 18-year-old man, you know what it's like to be that age. The last thing they want is someone who is not their mom, but is coming in and telling them, hey, it's terrible that you exist and it's terrible that you have white skin color. It doesn't work. So, Senator, I do.
You're an oppressor.
Please.
You're white, you're oppressive, right? But Charlie,
Exactly.
if you're white, you're an oppressor. I mean, give me a break. You know what? I'm a kid that grew up in public housing. I joined the Navy at 18. Okay. And I just wanted my chance to live the dream. Just give me, my mom said, look, everything is your fault. Yeah, and your success is going to be your fault. Your failure is going to be your fault. So just let me go after my own success and get out of my way.
That's exactly right. Senator, I want to draw our audience's attention to some of the special elections in Florida. They're getting a lot of attention. We're being outspent significantly. What are the two special elections and why do they matter?
Well, Jimmy Patronis is in the Panhandle. He's taking Matt Gaetz' seat. Okay. Then Randy Fine, the Republican, is taking Mike Waltz's seat. So we've got to get our vote out. In special elections, often the vote is, there's low voter turnout. And this is when we have, these are both should be, all right, in a normal year, this would be easy Republican wins. But what we're seeing now is our Democrats about racists because they know this is the chance to reduce the majority of the Republicans in the House. We've got to win. Jimmy's got to win. Randy's got to win. So here's what you can do. Give them money. You can make phone calls to people you might know in that district from anywhere in the country. You've got to get the vote out. We got to get everybody to go to the polls. We have, you can early vote in Florida right now, and you can vote on election day. So we've got 8 days to go. It's a week from Tuesday. Get the vote out. You've got to get out to vote. That's how I've won my elections in Florida. We've got to get the people out to vote.
And these special elections can sometimes sneak up on us. It is an R plus Trump 30 district. It is pure turnout. Is that correct, Senator?
Pure turnout. It's all who's going to show up. And how you lose these special elections is, people say, oh gosh, we always win. I wasn't even tracking the race. So like I've done a telephone town hall for Randy just the other day. Just do one thing. We have an election. You have to, if you're a Republican, you have to get out there and vote. If we get our voters out, we're going to win.
It is truly pure turnout. Let's put 109 up on screen here. This is from Jake Shermer from Punchbowl. Just a massively stunning cash disparity in Florida 6, where there will be a special next week to replace Mike Waltz. Democrat Josh Weil raised $9 million and has $1.2 million cash on hand. Republican Randy Fine raised $987,000 and has just $92,000 on hand. Senator, how is it possible that we keep on getting outspent so significantly here?
Well, no one took the race seriously. No one thought, in a Republican seat that Mike Waltz had won handily, that there would have been any risk that we wouldn't win here. And so what's happened is the Democrats have shown up, and they have all this Act Blue money that they can raise. And so, and when you have just ads attacking you, and you can't raise money, it makes it hard. And that's exactly what's happened to Randy Fine. So this is going to come down to, do our voters show up? If our voters show up, we're going to win because, it's getting late. But if you can donate to Randy Fine or donate to Jimmy Patronis, donate to them. If you have the time to make phone calls to get the vote out, you can call their campaigns. You can get on their websites, and you can, I think Randy Fine's, it's voterandyfine.com. You can get on there and you make phone calls for them. You can send texts for them. So we've got to get our votes out. We know where the votes are. Get the votes out.
What part of Florida is this again? I mean, some people don't even know their congressional district. Remind people, please.
So, Jimmy Patronis is up in the Panhandle.
That's fine. But Randy Fine, where is
Randy Fine? Randy's the Melbourne area. So a little bit south. So those are
that's just conservative country there.
Oh yeah, we should win handily. It's just the fact that no one took the race seriously. It's a big Republican seat. Mike Waltz won easily. So Josh is, the other candidate has been able to raise a lot of money, and he's run terrible ads, just complete lies about Randy. But we got to go hustle.
Yes, we do. Senator, give us the latest update from Capitol Hill as far as the schedule for second-tier nominations and also the one big, beautiful bill.
So last week was our recess. We're back in our districts, our states. And so we're back up here for 3 weeks. So in 3 weeks, we're going to work our tail off to try to get this reconciliation done. So we're going to work with our House colleagues on doing these things. Number one, we've got to make sure Trump has the money to get rid of the illegals, the criminals, the terrorists, the narco traffic, and people selling our drugs to our kids. He needs $175 billion to do that. We've got to plus up our military to be able to defend ourselves. And then third, we got to balance the budget, and we got to get the Trump tax cuts extended. So we've got to work with our House colleagues really hard to get this done. We can balance a budget. We can do all these things right now, but it's going to take a lot of work over the next 3 weeks.
And the spending cuts, where are we at with the DOJ recommendations? And I know those negotiations are ongoing. What is the latest update there?
So Elon's done a great job giving information to our secretaries of ways they can reduce staffing, reduce wasteful spending. Now what we've got to do is we've got to, do rescission package. What the White House can do, they can send us a rescission package, and it only takes 218 members of the House, 51 members in the Senate, and we can get rid of that spending. I know the White House is looking at that. I spoke with OMB last week about it, so I know they're looking at that. And then as we do our budget for 2026, which will be part of this reconciliation, we can dramatically reduce that spending and take those DOJ cuts and put them in our reconciliation bill.
The fiscal calamity that we are experiencing is immense, and the lack of Washington, D.C.'s appetite to cut spending and get down to baseline budgeting is horrifying. My hope is that we'll be able to... Please talk about the stakes here.
So, Charlie, think about it. What was the election about? The election was about secure the border, make us safe, get inflation under control. Inflation will not come down. Interest rates will not come down if we don't balance the budget. They're not going to. Right? It's all caused. It's a monetary. It's caused because of wasteful spending. We're spending $2 trillion more than we take in. We've had a 2% increase in our population, a 53% increase in spending in 5 years. So what we've got to do is we've got to do what you do. I mean, Charlie, you do it. Everybody does it. You get your credit card, you look at all the lines and say, well, was that one right? Oh, I'm not going to do that one again. We're not going to spend money like that. That's what you do. We've got to do the same thing at the federal level. We did it in my business life constantly. When I was governor, I went through all 4,000 lines of the budget. Ron Johnson just had an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal saying, let's get the House, the Senate, the White House together, and let's go line by line through the budget. I did that as governor. That's how we balanced the budget. We reduced spending, and we reduced wasteful spending because we had a purpose for every line. That's what you should expect out of your tax dollars. There should be a purpose, not $600,000 to study the menstrual cycle of transgender men, or $800,000 to do gardening and new chicken gardening in El Salvador. I mean, this stuff is crazy. This is all doable. We can balance this budget, and that's what. If we're going to get inflation under control, get interest rates down so you can afford that house or afford that car, it's going to be because we balance the budget.
And if it doesn't happen, it's simply because of certain Senate and House colleagues of yours that do not have the will to cut spending and do not want to face the music. Senator, we will not have a country anymore if we do not dramatically cut spending.
Absolutely, Charlie. It's simple. What the way to do it is right now they're anticipating that we're going to collect about $5.5 trillion. What do you do with your personal life? Okay, you say I'm not spending more than that. So what we should do is say our spending level will be the same as our revenues or less. Right? When I was governor, it was less, and I paid off a third of the state debt. So we should say, okay, there's a lot of nice to haves, but we don't have the revenues for that. The taxpayers are not willing to give us the money to do those things. So the way to do it is to say, I'm not going to cut anything. I'm going to say, this is what I'm going to spend money on. All right, these are my highest priorities, but nothing else. This is the only amount of money I have to spend. It's just like what every family does with their personal life. We've got to do it with the federal government.
Senator, thank you for your leadership. We'll be watching very closely, and keep on telling your colleagues that we, the base, are demanding spending cuts. Spending cuts.
I agree with you, Charlie. All right. Have a great day.
Talk to you soon. Thank you. What do we have, guys? Look, if you guys want to be able to have a lot of spunk, energy, and spirit, I have to ask the question, how much sleep are you getting? Sleep is the secret. How much sleep you get will tie directly into your ability to fight infection, to live a good life, to keep off the pounds. Sleep is everything. We all know how challenging it can be to get the quality sleep we need. Whether it's falling asleep or staying asleep. By the way, I have no issue falling asleep thanks to Z Factor or staying asleep. You guys got to check it out. Z Factor is 100% drug-free, so it's safe to take regularly. Plus, there's no groggy feeling when you wake up. If you're looking for the right formula for better Z's, give Z Factor a try. Call 1-800-4RELIEF. That is 1-800-4RELIEF. Or visit relieffactor.com. Call 1-800-4RELIEF, relieffactor.com. Better sleep without drugs. See how Z Factor can get you the Z's that you want and that you need. Helps relax your mind so you can fall asleep quicker, and then helps you sleep soundly through the night. Go to relieffactor.com. That is 1-800-4RELIEF, relieffactor.com. Email me, freedom@charliekirk.com, and subscribe to our podcast. That is the Charlie Kirk Show podcast page. We are going to share some exciting personal news, 2 things that have been public on social media, but we haven't yet had a chance to address it here on our program. So we're going to address both of them. Very exciting things. Email me, freedom@charliekirk.com. Subscribe to our podcast and follow the QR code. We'll be right back.
Patriots love him. Leftists hate him. Nobody ignores him. It's the Charlie Kirk Show.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. Email us freedom@charliekirk.com and subscribe to our podcast. I want to play more of this conversation between David Shore and Ezra Klein. We're going to do that after the break, as also 2 pieces of really important personal news. But let me just play this. Remember this from Scott Galloway? This is a phenomenal table setter before we dive deeper into the data. Play cut 101.
For the first time in our nation's history, a 30-year-old man or woman isn't doing as well as his or her parents were at 30. That is the social compact breaking down. People aged 30 to 34, 60% of them in 1990 had 1 child. Now it's 27%. People are opting out of America. They're not optimistic about it. They're not having kids. Young people aren't having sex. They're not meeting. They're not mating. The pool of emotionally and economically viable men shrinks every day, which lessens household formation. So we have a real issue. Young people are enraged. So it turns every cut, every movement into an opportunistic infection because, quite frankly, they are just pissed off.
And that's why they voted for President Donald Trump. Be right back. Okay, everybody, welcome back. Email us, freedom@charliekirk.com. So 2 pieces of personal news. The first of which, this happened about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Very honored. The President of the United States, President Trump, selected me to serve on the Air Force Academy Board of Visitors. Yes, it is true. I've never served in the military. However, I do know something about kicking woke out of institutions. The Air Force Academy is a very far left-wing institution, as it has been running the last couple of years, and honored that the president has given me this opportunity alongside some other great change agents like Senator Tuberville and many others to make the Air Force Academy great again. If we are serious about fighting the communist Chinese and our enemies abroad, we need the Air Force Academy to not be one that is focused on diversity, equity, inclusion, but instead on excellence and meritocracy. The second piece of personal news that I'm very honored and quite honestly humbled is that starting next week, a week from today, we will be taking over Dennis Prager's radio slot. Dennis is still recovering from a very difficult spinal cord injury that he sustained in November. I've visited Dennis a couple times in the hospital. And so starting next week, we are very humbled to be taking over his radio slot. It means that our radio audience will be growing by about 40%, and we will be doing an entire show in his honor. Now, Dennis is still alive, and Dennis is going to be coming back on radio hopefully in June in the 3rd hour of this program. But Dennis is in a tough spot, and we keep him in our prayers, and we keep him in our thoughts every single day. And I think I am one of the greatest Dennis Prager fans alive. I listen to him almost every single day. I read the Rational Bible. I listen to all of his Rational Bible lectures that he did over the course of 25 years. So honored and very humbled to be receiving his radio portfolio starting a week from today. Continuing here, how do young people get their information? Well, this is from the conversation between Ezra Klein and Mr. Shore. I talked about on this program, I said, hey guys, there's something to this TikTok thing. We have to lean into TikTok. People said, oh, like Tom Cotton, who doesn't even know what TikTok is. We must ban it. Okay, I used to believe that too. But did you realize that one of the reasons why we're singing a right-wing revolution is because of TikTok? One of the reasons why we saw so many people go in our direction is that we used something that we did not otherwise like, and we used it for good and virtuous and righteous purposes. Play cut 103.
What I have here is we have the share of voters who get their news from TikTok, by year. The share of voters who get their young voters who get their news from TikTok more than quadrupled in the last 4 years. This is the biggest and probably fastest change in media consumption, that has happened in my lifetime. And it was quite correlated with support change. Now, obviously, TikTok users are younger. They're less politically engaged. It's not surprising that we dropped among this group. You'd expect that from demographics. When you zoom in particularly to people who get their news from TikTok, who don't care very much about politics, this is a group that's 8 percentage points more Republican than they were 4 years ago, and that's a lot.
So this is the muscular class. These are young folks that are taking out your trash. They're serving you the food at In-N-Out Burger. They're driving your Uber Eats. They're just trying to make it work. Our hypothesis was correct. We said, hey, there's something to this TikTok thing. Democrats are trying to ban it. Let's go all in. And, with 2.5 billion views on TikTok later, looks like the macro data pointed in our direction. And President Donald Trump also embraced TikTok. We had the third most popular TikTok of any TikTok accounts, behind President Trump and Trump's campaign. And when President Trump's campaign, we were more popular. The Charlie Kirk Show TikTok page, good job, Ryan, was more popular than Kamala Harris. TikTok diluted the power of the Mockingbird media. TikTok allowed us to go straight into the pockets of millions of young people. And so did X, to be fair. And so did Rumble and all the others. But nothing came close to the potency of TikTok. Nothing came even close. Because we were reaching non-political young people, which is what I realized about a couple months into doing this. We went to our People's Convention in Detroit, and all of a sudden, all the janitors are coming up giving me fist bumps, and these are blacks and Hispanics. I said, okay. Then I went to the DNC in Chicago, and all the people working at the DNC in Chicago said, we like you. We hate Kamala Harris. We follow you on TikTok. I said, oh, we are sitting on something enormous. We embraced it all throughout the election. The Democrats are still trying to figure out what happened. Good luck. Second hour coming up.
America's Voice family.
Are you on Getter yet?
No. What are you waiting for?
It's free.
It's uncensored, and it's where all the biggest voices in conservative media are speaking out.
Download the Getter app right now. It's totally free. It's where I put up exclusively all of my content 24 hours a day. You want to know what Steve Bannon's thinking? Go to Getter.
That's right. You can follow all of your favorites. Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, Jack Posobiec.
And so many more.
And the best part?
You can watch Real America's Voice right there on Getter.
Live.
So join the conversation.
Hop on the Getter chat room.
Engage with patriots who are just like you.
Good morning, Getter friends.
We're breaking news, we're delivering the truth, and we're doing it on Getter
every single day.
So don't wait. Download the Getter app now.
Sign up for free and be part of the movement.
This isn't just an app. It isn't just a social media platform. It's a community.
to this Real America's Voice news break. I'm Terrence Bates. Detoxing is one of those words you hear people throw around a few times a year. The big question this morning, what is it? How do you do it properly? And what are the benefits? Well, here's how one woman describes her detox experience with Energized Health.
I detoxed not only physically, but intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. The last few days, I actually had kind of a traumatic experience, totally unexpected. I handled it boldly, calmly, truthfully, and I wouldn't have done that 4 months ago when I started. No matter what you're doing, if you're detoxing, to me, that helped me more than anything. I went through 2 rounds of viruses and things, getting things out of my body, and it's been great. I just suggest it for anybody.
So let's bring in the founder of Energized Health, John Jubilee, to talk a bit more about detoxing. John, it's good to see you, my friend. How do you know that you need to even start detoxing? Let's start there, and then we'll move through the process.
Well, Terrence, in this day and age, we all need a detox. Think about, RFK, his whole drive, taking on all of these food companies, Terrence, not drug companies, food companies. They're literally, all of our foods, farmers are, they're spraying all these toxins on all the food. And then the manufacturers, when they process the food, you'll see these memes pop up, Terrence, where it used to be when we were little kids growing up, there was 4 ingredients in the food, and now there's 24. What are those extra 20 ingredients? They're toxins. There's toxins in these foods. And that's why RFK is just so bent on, changing all of the food processing mechanisms. What are farmers allowed to do? What are food manufacturers? So all of us have been ingesting toxins, probably since the time, we were in grade school. And these toxins build up inside our body. And so we need to flush them out. And I like to give this word picture, Terrence, think of the power of a river, So if you took 10 styrofoam cups, and those represent 10 food ingredient toxins in your body, but if you throw a styrofoam cup in a river, what happens? The river just washes it away. So at Energized Health, with our patent-pending science of intracellular hydration, you have that hydration just pumping through your body, which naturally flushes out all of your toxins. Now, a lot of people, Terrence, they go and they'll buy these detox formulas, and man, they are nasty. These people are drinking and ingesting all of this crazy stuff and taking drops and drinking these concoctions, and they think that's a detox. But the reality is those have, they might have some small effect, but Terrence, you can have a lifetime effect. When you get your hydration right at the cellular level, you become like a rushing mighty river that flushes out every toxin in your body. And once your toxins are flushed out and your river is flowing, no matter what you put in, your body's going to flush it out. That's a healthy lifetime detox.
One of the things I noticed in listening to the woman whose testimony we just heard, it wasn't just about a physical detox. She was talking about the emotional and the mental part of it, that she found clarity. Can you talk a bit more about that, how a mind, body, and soul really are one?
Yes, absolutely. This is what we teach in our protocol at Energized Health, which is cellular trauma. So we all have cellular trauma. So maybe our parents got divorced, or maybe they said unkind things to us, or other people said or did unkind things to us growing up. Well, when that happens, it gets locked into us at the cellular level. And so one of the things that we absolutely believe, that God created us as a triune being. We have a body, we are a spirit, and then we have our mind, will, and our emotions. So that is the 3 parts of how we're created. Yeah. And so we absolutely have toxic things that have happened to us, and those need to be flushed out as well in our life.
All right. And you can get more information, folks, at energizedhealth.com. It's all right there on your screen. John, always good to talk to you. Energizedhealth.com. Log on right now and find out how you can begin the detoxing as well. Well, that's going to do it for us here on Real America's Voice. We appreciate you being here.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. Email us freedom@charliekirk.com and subscribe to our podcast. That is the Charlie Kirk Show podcast page. Become a member today, members.charliekirk.com. That is members.charliekirk.com. Joining us now is Mike Davis. Mike, welcome to the program. Mike, we have not talked about Mr. Boasberg for a couple days, and I want to talk about all the courts and kind of how they're acting. I first want a macro analysis from you. What is your take on the judicial activism and the pernicious nature of the unelected judiciary undermining the will of the sovereign?
President Trump campaigned on the facts. He's going to hire Elon Musk. He's going to set up the Department of Government Efficiency. And DOGE is going to go after waste, fraud, and abuse in our federal government. And we've seen a lot, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. President Trump also campaigned on the fact that he's going to secure our borders. He's going to designate Tren de Aragua as a foreign terrorist organization, and he's going to get these terrorists the hell out of our country. And the American people like what they heard. And on November 5th, they gave President Trump a broad, decisive electoral mandate. 312 electoral votes, all 7 swing states, the popular vote. We kept the House. President Trump won back the Senate with a comfortable margin. I'm glad the Senate finally understands they wouldn't have a majority for Republicans if it weren't for President Trump's decisive win on November 5th. And President Trump is doing the unthinkable in Washington. He's actually doing what he promised American voters he would do, and he's doing it fast. The first time he ran, he had never ran for office. He had never served in office. He made mistakes in his first term, even though it was an incredibly successful first term. A big mistake was personnel. He's not making those mistakes this time. He had 4 years in office. He had 4 years to reflect. He faced the Biden lawfare, the unprecedented Republican ending lawfare. He's ready to govern on day one. And the last line of Trump resistance is these activist judges. You have these Democrats, partisan plaintiffs and lawyers run into these Democrat activist judges, particularly in Washington, D.C., and they are trying to sabotage the presidency. They're trying to sabotage President Trump because of policy and political disagreements. President Trump is not trying to steal Congress's legislative power under Article 1. President Trump is not trying to steal the Supreme Court's judicial power under Article 3. The president is exercising core Article 2 executive powers under Article 2, and you have these activist judges sabotaging him. These are judicial saboteurs, and not only is it extremely lawless, it's getting very dangerous. You had a judge in D.C., a Canadian foreign citizen to this day, has a lifetime appointment on the bench, Judge Ali. They bragged, the Biden administration bragged, he's the first Muslim, he's the first Arab federal judge in D.C. Several weeks ago, this judge ordered the president to send out $2 billion in foreign aid over the president's national security review to make sure we're not funding Hamas terrorists to kill Americans under the guise of humanitarian relief in Gaza, or we're not funding waste, fraud, and abuse like transgender mice research in Kazakhstan or whatever hellhole we were funding that research through USAID. The Supreme Court failed to stop this Judge Ali. And 2 weeks later, you have this D.C. Obama judge, Jeb Boasberg. Not only he held a Saturday hearing last Saturday, two Saturdays ago, where he exposed an ongoing military, law enforcement, and intel operation putting American allied lives in grave danger. He even ordered planes to turn around with Tren de Aragua, foreign terrorists, and MS-13 international gangbangers. This judge thought he could not only expose this military operation, but order the president to turn around planes. We saw in El Salvador that this president had a massive security footprint of military, law enforcement, and intel officials ready to accept these terrorists. We did not have that same footprint in America. How would Jeb Boasberg have known what we had in America for security? How would Jeb Boasberg have known the fuel on the...
I mean, but then what is the recourse? He's just going to keep doing this and ignore people. And so impeachment is not going to happen, and that's largely a waste of time. We just don't have the votes to do that. So then how do we rein in this judicial despotism?
Well, I would say this on several fronts, Charlie. I was the chief counsel for nominations on the Senate Judiciary Committee. I had the oversight portfolio for the federal judiciary, right? And I know how these judges think, and I know how the Chief Justice thinks. I clerked on the Supreme Court and was around the Chief Justice. Personally a pleasant guy, but he operates in a very political way. So it's time, if these activist judges want to take off their judicial robes and climb into the political arena and throw political punches like we saw with Judge Ali and Judge Boasberg, we need to throw political counter punches. And that means going after their jurisdiction. That means going after their funding. And yes, it means having impeachment as leverage. It's not a waste of time. Even if we don't have the votes in the Senate to remove them, it's the mere threat of impeachment. It's the mere sword of Damocles over their head. It's the scarlet letter these judges would have if they faced an impeachment inquiry. They don't want that. I know they don't want that. And so you use impeachment as the sword of Damocles over their heads to get them to understand that if they keep being activist judges, this is not judicial review, what these judges are doing. This is judicial sabotage. It is a clear violation of the separation of powers. This is not judicial power they're exercising. They're trying to tell the president that he has to turn around planes during a military operation. Last time I checked, Jeb Boasberg is not a black trans woman, so I don't think Joe Biden would have hired him to be an air traffic controller, and he's certainly not the commander-in-chief who can order the president to stop in the middle of military operations and turn them around and then doubling down on his danger. He's asking the Justice Department to come in and reveal these classified or highly secret military operations. Well, why would a foreign leader want to deal with a president of the United States on a high-risk operation like this Salvadorian president just did, if the mission is going to get exposed publicly because an activist judge held a Saturday hearing? It puts American and allied lives in grave danger. And if those planes would have turned around, this Salvadorian president would have been waiting there with hundreds of government officials to accept these terrorists, and they didn't show up. That would have humiliated a foreign ally. It makes it less likely they'll do business with us. That undermines the president's power as the commander-in-chief, his power to conduct foreign affairs on behalf of the country. And so I would say this directly to the Chief Justice, John Roberts. You need to get your judicial house in order. And if you don't, Congress is going to do it for you. I know that there is appetite to do this because I'm working with House and Senate leaders on this bill. And I'll tell you what, there will be 60 votes if we have a bill that works with people like Sheldon Whitehouse to bring ethics reform to the Supreme Court, which is long what Sheldon Whitehouse is doing. So this is very serious, and I hope the Chief Justice understands how serious this is when he lets his judicial saboteurs destroy the presidency.
Okay, stay there, Mike Davis. This is a huge issue, and I want to get even further deeper into this. Is there a moment where President Trump and his administration should say, we're just not going to listen to you, man. We're not going to do this. And it is time for the Supreme Court to intervene. And I hope everybody in the audience understands this, that two partner countries of ours, Brazil and Israel, are living under similar judicial despotism, but it is far, far worse. If you have Brazil and Israel, they're basically controlled by an unelected Supreme Court that calls the shots, that can impeach presidents, that can overturn laws. District courts should not have the authority to enjoin the entire country. Stay right there, Mike Davis. Patriot Mobile. Go to patriotmobile.com/Charlie. That's patriotmobile.com/Charlie. While we may have won this election, The fight to restore our great nation is just beginning. Now is the time to take a stand, and Patriot Mobile is leading the charge. As America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, Patriot Mobile offers a way to vote with your wallet without compromising on quality or convenience. Patriot Mobile is not just about providing exceptional cell phone service. It's a call to action to defend your rights and freedoms. With Patriot Mobile, you'll get outstanding nationwide coverage because they operate on all 3 major networks. If you have a cell phone service today, you can get a cell phone service with Patriot Mobile with a coverage guarantee. Right now, go to patriotmobile.com/Charlie or call 972-PATRIOT. That is patriotmobile.com/Charlie. This is a fight over who runs the country, the Black Robe Regiment or us. We'll be right back.
We're interrupting this program for a special live report.
We're interrupting your regularly scheduled programming to take you to the White House, where President Trump has been meeting with his cabinet. Let's listen in.
They said, thank you very much. It was no incentive for them to use it. But what is good is the tariffs will make it so that they want to come back. That's why they're coming back. I think they're coming back because of the election that took place on November 5th and because of the fact that they have to come back because the tariffs are forcing them to come back. And remember, there are no tariffs if you build here. And that's a big factor. So we have record numbers. Howard was just telling me the numbers that we're talking about are crazy, beyond anybody's wildest expectation. So they'll be doing a lot of building, all sorts of businesses, including the basics of automobiles. We have, as you know, Honda is coming in with a massive plant to Indiana, but there are many plants that are happening, and literally some are started already. General Motors is already redoing plants that were half abandoned, or they have plants that weren't being fully utilized. They're going to be, they and others are going to be making parts and other things in those plants so that it's one-stop shopping finally. It's ridiculous. You had to go to Mexico, you had to go to Canada, a car went all over the place. It was like, I don't know how that would have worked, but that's the way it sort of ended up. We had a deal, and we have a deal, it's fine, but people took advantage of the deal. They cheated. And when you cheat, the deals are unfortunate. But now what's happening is the numbers are beyond our wildest expectations. Now, having to do with cutting, we've done a lot of cutting, cutting from people, ideally the people that aren't doing the job. In many cases, people weren't attending jobs. In some cases, in many cases, people didn't exist. They had on the government rolls people that don't even exist. But of the ones that did exist, as you know, many didn't come to work. Many had no intention of coming to work. Many were paid and working someplace else. There were lots of bad scenarios, but they're being weeded out, and I think we're probably ahead of schedule on that. And to me, something that was just terrible is the contracts that we're finding, the fraudulent contracts that we're finding, where millions and millions of dollars and even billions of dollars in some cases were given out. And I think we'll start with that. I'd like to start with Doug Burgum, Secretary of the Interior. He told us about a couple of contracts that we have now found when he got there, they saw this with Chris and everybody, and they couldn't believe it. Doug, could you just relate what you told us a little while ago?
No, happy to, Mr. President. There's a federal consulting group, which was a group inside of Interior, but it was managing contracts from many different agencies that flowed through here. One of those contracts was to do surveys of individuals, $830 million for surveys. And so part of the question was, hey, could we actually see the surveys? And then the surveys came back, and a survey was like 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper with 10 questions that anyone's child in junior high could have put together, or AI could have done for free. $830 million. So that's one that we've stopped, and that contract was going out after you were inaugurated, sir. So it was jumping.
It's a pure fraud.
Yeah,
it's a fraud. But we've had many fraudulent contracts that were caught by the work that Elon and his people are doing, and working with our people. It's been brought to light. The fraud, not just waste and abuse, the fraud has been incredible. You mentioned one, Madam Secretary.
Well, yes, sir. Well, let me just add to that, and thank you. We just had a wonderful cabinet meeting, all aligned on certainly the effort to realign the government. But even at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, we've canceled a $300,000 contract educating on food justice for queer and transgender farmers in San Francisco. A similar contract we canceled in New York, again, educating transgender and queer farmers on food justice and food equality. I'm not even sure what that means, but apparently the last administration wanted to put our taxpayer dollars towards that. We canceled a $600,000 contract out of Louisiana that was studying the menstrual cycles of transgender men, a $600,000 contract. We canceled another contract out of a university in the middle of the country that focused on getting more diversity, equity, and inclusion into our pest management industry. Again, these are nonsensical. It makes zero sense to use taxpayer dollars to fund these. I know these are just a few examples of the hundreds and hundreds that we have found.
Well, the clear case of fraud was with the Small Business Administration, where they were handing out loans, $330 million worth of loans to people under the age of 11. I think the youngest, Kelly, was a 9-month-old who got a $100,000 loan. That's a very precocious baby we're talking about here.
Well, we're tackling the fraud, waste, and abuse in the agency. We've seen, hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud go unprosecuted, so we're taking that on. We have a zero tolerance policy for fraud, and we continue to crack down on it and make sure people are held accountable.
It's amazing. And you have a lot of that. You've found far too much of it. It's a pure fraud. We like to use the words waste and abuse because they sort of sound good, but many of these things are pure fraud. Now, there was a contract that you've heard about where Stacey Abrams got $2 billion just before we took over, and it was a rush to get her the money, and that was environmental, and nobody knows what she was doing. But $2 billion. If you got $2 million, that's a lot. If you got 200,000, that's a lot. But this was $2 billion was given. Lee, do you want to talk about that? And the other one that was even worse?
EPA has now canceled over $22 billion worth of contracts. $2 billion going to this NGO that Stacey Abrams was tied to. They received only $100 in 2023. And then the Biden administration gave them $2 billion. The director of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund saw his former employer get $5 billion. So $20 billion went to just 8 NGOs, and they're all pass-throughs. And then they were giving it to other entities. Many of them were pass-throughs. And what you have is all these extra middlemen, they're taking their cut. And the taxpayer ends up getting screwed. They're losing out on all this hard-earned money. They can't afford to have the federal government waste. The partnership with Doge and Elon Musk has been incredible at EPA. Their team is very talented. We wouldn't have been able to do it without them. And of course, this mandate from President Trump to make sure that we identify every last penny, whether we're saving $50,000, $5 million, or $22 billion. We will not rest until every last penny is saved. Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity to do this for the American public.
Thank you. Great job. So we have a lot of that. We're getting down to a point, we think probably over the next 2 or 3 months, we'll be pretty much satisfied with the people that are working hard and want to be members of the administration and our country, really. And they're doing a lot of good people. We have a lot of great people. We want to keep the good ones, and we want to get rid of the ones that don't exist, and we want to get rid of the ones that do exist but don't work. And we have quite a few of them. Would anybody else like to say something before we take some questions from the press, please? Doug Collins.
Yeah, Mr. President, I think one of the things that you've always told me is take care of our veterans, and that's what we're doing at the VA. And one of the things, though, is you also have to know who your employees are. You have to know the very fact of who you are. We're 470,000 roughly when we started this, larger than the active duty Army, when you think about that in the perspective. But however, this is an interesting point. When I first got there and we started looking at this, how you take care of people, we didn't have an HR system that could actually give us a rundown on who actually was working where. That we've had to work with that, working with our VA employees who are DOJ liaisons. We've been able to put together an organizational chart which we can start looking at that. But the interesting part about it is about taking care of veterans. And what you've told me to do is how do we get the people in the right places? And I think when we look at this, GAO has told us we were high risk for years. The previous administration put literally tens of billions of dollars and tens of thousand employees over the last 4 years, and we saw our statistics basically stay the same or go down. Backlogs went up. Maybe the question is not money and employees anymore. Maybe it's the organization and how we effectively deliver for the American people. That's what we're going to do.
Well said.
And one thing I want to add to it, it is not necessarily a very popular thing to do. You're talking about employment, you're talking about people and the lives of people. And yet, I think the American public understands we're trying to save our country and make our country great again. I mean, you could say it, but we're trying to save our country from this extraordinary thing that was happening. What they were doing to our country was just a horrible thing. And I have no idea how it plays out in the public. I guess you see poll numbers that are very good numbers, but I don't know what that means long term. But it's something that has to be done. If we don't do it, we're not going to have much of a country left, so we have to do it. So we're doing things that I think a lot of presidents wouldn't be inclined to do, but we're doing it to really, I don't want to use cliche. I don't want to say we're doing it to make America great again, because I say that on the campaign trail, but there's really no other words that could express it better than that. We're doing it to help our country. And our country was riddled with fat, like no country probably anywhere in the world. And we're getting rid of the fat. And at the same time, we're going to be bringing in millions of very good, high-paying jobs. And we're going to be taking in a lot of money. Our country's going to be very strong. We've been ripped off by every country in the world, friend and foe. We were taken advantage of like nobody's ever seen. And you saw what happened today with Venezuela. We did something with Venezuela, which is long in the making, and it's very substantial. And we'll be announcing cars very shortly, and we already announced steel, as you know, and aluminum. We'll be announcing pharmaceuticals at some point in the not too distant, because we have to have pharmaceuticals. We don't make pharmaceuticals anymore in our country. And if we have problems like wars or anything else, we need steel, we need pharmaceuticals, we need aluminum, we need a lot of these things that we sort of don't make anymore, and yet we're equipped to do it all. So we'll be announcing some of these things in the very near future, not the long future, the very near future. And it'll bring in billions of dollars, billions and billions, and it'll bring in, maybe more importantly, jobs. It'll protect the jobs we have. And it's going to be really, really quite amazing. Chris, did you have something to say?
Yes, Mr. President. I want to say energy is the infrastructure that makes our country run and drives our national security. The Biden administration grew my department, the Department of Energy, by 20%, and expenditure much more than that, all in an effort to reduce the production of energy in the United States and to make energy more expensive. We are stewards of the American taxpayer dollars, right? That's the job of everyone around this table, led by you. We want to reverse that trajectory and care about every dollar an American taxpayer gives us, and are we using it for the benefit of Americans? Let me tell you one thing, huge growth in expenditures, huge growth in employee count. Puerto Rico, an American territory, had its electricity grid destroyed. They had billions of dollars in the Department of Energy to help Puerto Rico, yet they didn't spend that money because that money would have meant more energy, more jobs, more prosperity in Puerto Rico. They wanted to have them as a poster child of wind and solar. This island should run on wind and solar. That just doesn't work. But they cared about politics more than the American people, and they didn't treat the dollars like they were their dollars. This table, the team you have assembled, we're treating the American dollars like they're our dollars.
Thank you. We're doing a great job on energy, by the way. We have things happening with energy that will knock your socks off. A really amazing job. Howard, do you want to say a couple of words?
Well, what is so exciting is April 2nd is just around the corner, and that's American Liberation Day. That's the day when the rest of the world starts to treat America with respect. And your leadership, understanding how the rest of the world treats us and what balance and what fair trade finally is going to be, is going to take care of America. It's going to launch the External Revenue Service to start to build the power and prestige of America back. And I'm honored to be helping you on that course.
It's an interesting term, right? The External Revenue Service. We're going to take in a lot of money from the outside, and that's going to keep our taxes low, and I think getting a lot lower. It's going to be a lot of money, and the external will take care of the internal to a large extent. So I think it's going to be a beautiful transformation. Linda, you might say a couple of words. You've done so amazing. It's a 50% cut. And more importantly, we want to bring education into the states. We're at the bottom of the pack, but we're the most expensive per pupil. And we want to bring education back to the states where they can teach the students lovingly with their parents and with the boards and everything else. And they'll be every bit as good as these other countries. These individual states will do a phenomenal job. Want to say something?
Yes, sir. And if we think about education, if we don't address the issues in education now and start getting our scores up, where are we going to find our next generation after that? Where are our engineers, our doctors, our lawyers, our scientists, our AI and technical experts going to come from? We will go farther and farther down, and with everything else we're doing within our country, building manufacturing, bringing all of that back, if we don't educate in the best way we can, we will be lost, and those generations will be lost. It is, I think, the cornerstone of our culture and what we need to focus on. And so by having education at the best place where it can be, which is at the states, the local levels, with governors, with best practices and tools, which I hope the Department of Education can help supply for them, we'll do it.
And Linda, as you know, the SBA has taken over her student loans, which is a lot of loans. It's a big job. And Kelly, we appreciate that. You're going to do fantastically well. And Bobby is going to be taking over their various medical aspects and health aspects of the educational process. So, and he's going to do a fantastic job of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just say that I'm very grateful to you and very grateful for the partnership with Doge and with Elon. We've identified extraordinary waste in my department and HHS. The expenditures, the budget of HHS during the Biden administration went up by 38%. The employees went up by 17%, and healthcare went down. We have 40 comms departments. We have 40 procurement departments. We have 40 IT departments, and we have 40 procurement, HR, none of them talking to each other. We are, with Elon's help, eliminating the redundancies. We are streamlining our department. We're going to go back to providing gold standard science. We're going to get the money to the scientists and to the patients rather than to the administrators and to the bureaucrats. And we're going to restore gold standard science, and we're going to make America healthy again.
Thank you very much. It's great. If you might, Madam Secretary, say a little bit about what's happening and how well we've done at the border.
Sir, this last week I was in Arizona, California, Alaska, and Florida, and CBP literally has almost 100% operational control of the border, which means that our country is secure and that we know who's coming into this country and that they love our country and they want to help keep it great into the future. We are, in the month of March, the last couple of weeks, increased our deportations by 50%. So we're now not even just getting the worst of the worst out. We're making sure that there's consequences for being here and committing crimes in our communities. And the numbers are continuing to escalate and to go up. Sir, this week I'm headed down to El Salvador. I'll be in the prison where we sent TDA members. I'll be meeting with the president and also Colombia and Mexico and talking about building these relationships so that we can continue to get people out of this country that don't belong here and take them home. And also, you had talked to me about sending the message worldwide about the fact that people shouldn't be coming to this country and they shouldn't be coming here illegally. So we are in several other countries around the world with a message right now that's saying, if you are thinking about coming to America illegally and coming here, don't do it. You are not welcome. We have a legal process to becoming a United States citizen, and there are consequences if you come here illegally, and America has changed because we're putting Americans first. So we've also, the Coast Guard has done phenomenal work. I don't know if you all have reported on it, but we have broken historic records in the amount of drug interdictions that they have brought in. We've repositioned the fleet to go after the fentanyl crisis and to go after the southern border and securing it, and they've done amazing work as far as that. We were down in Florida. They brought in $500 million worth of cocaine that they had done in 14 interdictions and had brought them in, going right directly after the cartels and doing great work there. And we have a cutter that we have sped up the process, sir, the icebreaker, that'll be hitting the waters here this summer, and we've got 2 more that will be coming. But, Russia is using their cutters and icebreakers up in the Arctic to do surveillance on us, and we're going to reposition our fleet to continue to partner. I want to thank the Secretary of Defense and the Navy for all of their help and partnership, too. We do operations together because their obvious Navy warships are in certain regions, but our cutters are faster and can work together in a partnership that's securing America. So, and we're going to eliminate FEMA. So we've got a lot to do, but it's all good, and we're working hard, and we're going to make sure that we're continuing to do exactly what you promised.
That's great. Great job. Yesterday, there was a plaza that you know well. There'd be hundreds of thousands of people standing at that plaza, pouring into our country, totally unchecked. Many people from jails and prisons and mental institutions and gang members, and horrible. And they just pour into our country. Yesterday, I was speaking to somebody. I was checking on the border, and they said there was literally nobody in this massive plaza. We're talking a plaza that would hold hundreds of thousands of people. There was literally nobody there. There was one person sweeping it, but there were no people. It's been amazing. It's been an amazing transformation very quickly. And we're getting the bad ones out first, and we're taking them out. And there's some really bad ones, murderers of more than one people. At least 50% murdered more than one person. This is the people that we're letting in through their open border policy. It was terrible, but I want to just congratulate you and Tom Holman on the job you've done.
Boston this weekend, hundreds of dangerous criminals were removed, 4 killers taken out of the country just by what they did in Boston this last few days.
Yeah. And these are killers that there's no reasoning. It's not like, let's talk them out of it. These are stone cold killers. They don't care. They don't even think about it. They kill somebody. They go to sleep. They wake up. They don't even remember they killed them. These are bad people that should have never been allowed into our country. Pam is doing such a fantastic job. I thought maybe you could say a few words.
Thank you, President. As far as we are hearing a lot about fraud, waste, and abuse, a lot of waste and abuse, but there is a tremendous amount of fraud. And Elon, thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your team. You have uncovered so much fraud in our government, and we will prosecute you. We have an internal task force now working with every agency sitting here at this table. And if you've committed fraud, we're coming after you. Thank you, Elon, for that. On the violent crime level, thanks to President Trump's directive, we are seeking the death penalty again. So all of these horrible, violent criminals that you're hearing about around the country, they will face the death penalty federally within our country. And the drug dealers need to get out of here because we are coming after you. We're going to have 94 great U.S. attorneys around this country, and everyone will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Thank you.
Thank you, President. It's at your directive.
I couldn't have said that better. That's very good. That's very good. She's doing a fantastic job. Thanks, ma'am. Do you have any questions, please?
Mr. President.
Yeah, please.
Mr. President, what can states do now to implement your Department of Education executive order?
Well, I think what's going to happen is we are cleaning out a lot of things like the loans, student loans, which will be handled very professionally by people that do that. And then, as you know, RFK Jr. is going to do a fantastic job having to do with health and the other things, and frankly, better than the people at the Department of Education. You see the buildings all over D.C., and then the rest is the states are going to start coming in and taking all of the information on all of their students. And I think a lot of that information is going to be shipped to different states like Iowa, like Indiana, like so many. They're so anxious to get. They're calling us, and they're so anxious to get it. We'll be shipping the records of the children that they're taking care of, that they want to take care of, and the process will begin. And I think it won't be that long before the states will be really running the Department of Education. Our teachers are going to be taken very well care of. And I said, personally, I don't care union, non-union, it doesn't matter. Teachers are so important to this country and to me. And we're going to take great care of our teachers. And I know it's very important to Linda. So I think you're going to see a tremendous change very quickly having to do with education. And the process has already begun, very strongly begun. I think we've done, in whatever it is, 8 weeks, people are amazed at how much we've done in terms of the safety of the country. In fact, I would like to ask maybe Marco to say a few words on what's happening with respect to, in particular, Russia, Ukraine, where we have some pretty good news, I think. We want to get it stopped. We're losing 2,500 young people, and these are Russian and Ukrainian people largely. They're not American people, but on a human basis, we want to get it stopped, and we want to stop spending billions and billions of dollars to a country that we think it's time, and we're doing pretty well. Marco, do you want to say something?
Yeah, Mr. President, first of all, I think the American people should be proud that we have a president that's promoting peace and the end of conflict on this planet. This is a war that's gone on for 3 years, as you pointed out, that, as you've rightly pointed out, would have never happened had you been president, but now it's here, and it needs to be brought to an end. There is no military solution to this war. It has to end through negotiation. And there's only one leader in the world that's capable of bringing two sides to a table, and that's our president, the President of the United States, President Trump. And that's what he's done. And so today, even as we speak, we have teams on the ground in Saudi Arabia meeting with the respective sides in the hopes of making progress towards this outcome that we all want to see. And I think that the country owes you a great debt of gratitude, and the world, really, because, you're the only leader in the planet that can bring the two sides together to bring an end to this conflict. And that's what you've done. And you've done it despite, impediments from other countries and others who maybe have different opinions about how this should go. But ultimately, I think that the only chance we have for peace is through the president's leadership, and you've shown that, and we hope it'll bear fruit. And today will hopefully be one step more in that direction.
Thank you, Marco. And on the Middle East, another hot spot that we didn't have a problem with. There was no problem in the Middle East when we left, and now there's a lot of problems in the Middle East, but we're working on that. But I think we've seen significant progress, and I think we're going to start, we were talking with the Vice President a little while ago, and you're going to see countries start to fill up the Abraham Accords. More and more countries want to join. That was a great success, tremendous success, and then Biden and his group did zero with it. That should have been filled up within a year of the election, would have been filled up. So countries are starting to want to get involved very much with the Abraham Accords again. So that'll be great. JD, do you want to say something?
Yeah, sure. Yes, sir. Just on that topic, if you think about what happened with the Abraham Accords, one of the great diplomatic breakthroughs under the first Trump administration, really in the last 30 or 40 years of American history in the Middle East, and the Biden administration did absolutely nothing with it. Built on it, not at all, added 0 additional countries. Purely out of political spite, the Biden administration, I think, hurt the United States and really hurt the project of world peace. That has changed. Luckily, about 2 months ago, we got a new president, and that president has given us the task of building out the Abraham Accords, adding new countries to it. And really what you see is a lot of these countries that have historical, ethnic, or religious hatreds want to build. They want to build new artificial intelligence. They want to build new real estate projects. They want their citizens to become rich and prosperous and peaceful, and they're setting to the side some of those old hatreds under the leadership of President Trump. So it's early, but we made a lot of progress, and we'll keep on making progress, sir.
Thank you, JD. One of the things that's very important, I think, to mention, I saw a show yesterday, and they had a Democrat congressman on. It was on Fox. And he said, well, President Trump said prices would be coming down, and instead he's focused on other things. Well, we are focused on a lot of other things, like peace, like all of these companies that are moving in and jobs. But what he didn't say is that prices have come down very substantially. And if you look at when I came in, after 1 week, they were screaming at me about eggs. Eggs had nothing to do with me, but they were through the roof, and you couldn't get them. And now they're down about 35, 40%, maybe even more than that. I'm going to let Brooke, if you would just discuss that. And groceries generally. Prices are coming down, and energy prices are coming down. And I hope the Fed lowers interest rates, and then you're going to see interest rates coming down. And I'll have you speak about that in a second, Scott. Brooke, go ahead.
Well, sir, thank you. I think the first thing that's really remarkable to note is that the prices of eggs under the 4 years of Joe Biden increased 237%. 237% in those 4 years, and yet it wasn't covered in the press at all. No one talked about the price of eggs in the summer of last year, for example, from the media. So, of course, the president wins, and he is inaugurated, and the next day, everyone is yelping about why the price of eggs are so high. So it was certainly one of many, many issues we took on under the 4 years of Joe Biden. We had the cost of input go up 30% for all of our agriculture products. At the same time, the trade deficit increased $49 billion. So it was zero under the first Trump administration. And then under Joe Biden, we sold $49 billion less of our ag products around the world. Then you combine that with the avian bird flu. And I know I've talked to a lot of you in the press on this over the last 3 or 4 weeks. But listen, here's the deal. The president, under his vision and support, we released about a month ago a very significant plan on how to bring the price of eggs down. It included 5 prongs. I won't go into it now because I don't want to bore everyone. But since that day, since we released that plan regarding biosecurity, repopulation, importing eggs, research, and then deregulating, taking those onerous rules off of our farmers, our egg-laying farmers, since that time, the price of eggs, the wholesale price of eggs, has come down 53%. So we're going to keep working on it. Listen, it's not something you solve overnight. Avian bird flu and some of the other animal diseases, we're working across the government, several partners out in the cabinet on that, especially my friend Secretary Kennedy over at HHS. But we have a long-term solution, but at least for now, in the short term, thanks to President Trump and so many that have worked so hard, the price of eggs are coming down, as well as the price of groceries. So thank you, sir, for the opportunity to lead on that.
And the number is 53%, and they're readily available. So I think it's a fantastic job. And overall, groceries are down, too.
That's right. They're coming down.
So the consumer's finally seeing some good news instead of year after year of prices going up because of grossly incompetent leadership. Scott, do you want to talk about interest rates, where you see it all going?
Yes, sir. So we are, under your direction, we're reprivatizing the economy. We're bringing down government spending. We're bringing down excess employment in the government sector. On the other side, we're going to re-leverage the banking system. We're going to have all the new manufacturing jobs, so everyone who's laid off. from the government. We'll have an opportunity to go into the private sector, and that is going to lead to disinflation. Inflation is under control. We're going to get the affordability crisis fixed. So lower energy, deregulation, more private sector jobs that will naturally get interest rates down. Interest rates down. Mortgage rates are down almost every week since January 20th. The energy costs are down about 15%. Crude oil's down about 15%. And as we keep that going, interest rates are going to keep declining. It'll be good for mortgages. It'll be good for credit card debt. It'll be great for auto loans.
That's great. And you're doing a really good job. I'd like to see the Fed lower interest rates. That's just my opinion. Because things are coming down. We have inflation under control. Tremendous amounts of money will be soon coming in from tariffs, which is about time that we were able to partake. We've been ripped off by every country on that basis, and it's about time. But that will be, I think, treated very fairly. Will be very fair. But the money that we're talking about is rather astronomical. And it should be, because we put years and years. I was able, in the first term, we had a great first term with the highest stock price increase ever, all the different things that we had. But one of the things, we took in a lot of money in tariffs, and I had just started that process. And we had to slow it down because of the COVID. We didn't go forward. We did a very good job with COVID, but that was something that happened to the whole world. It was a shame. What a shame. All those people dead. And all of the problems that it caused for countries far worse. I mean, some countries still haven't recovered. Economically, they haven't recovered. But we took in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs just starting the process. But this is a program that's going to be, I think, unbelievable for our country. And I think it's treating other countries very fairly. Very, very fairly. I'd like to ask, if I might, Sean Duffy to say a few words about the air traffic control situation. You know, there were some mishaps, one in particular, the helicopter crashing into the plane. We have a system that's 40 years old. They spent tens of billions of dollars trying to patch it up and, make it work, but it doesn't work. And my pilot says they use different systems. They don't want to use our system. It's so obsolete. And it's an obsolete, horrible thing that happened with respect to it. And we were going to, I said, day one, if this happens, if we are successful, we're going to have to get a brand new, modern, top-of-the-line air traffic system. And I think I can say that I've been working a little bit with Sean on it, but Sean's been working hard on it, and with his new person at FDA, who's going to be terrific, by the way. And maybe you want to talk to them about that, because we need safety in the air, total safety in the air, and this will give that to you.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. President. We had a conversation on Friday. Again, our air traffic control system, as we talked about maybe privately or I don't know publicly with all of you, but we have decades of ideas and billions of dollars, and no progress is ever made on any of these initiatives. Air traffic control is the same thing. And so we're having a conversation about building a state-of-the-art, brand new, best technology, envy of the world air traffic control system. And what's interesting from the DOGE team is they'll look and say, well, what is the problem? Why hasn't this been built? This is about safety. This is about people's lives. All of you fly. Your family flies. Why hasn't it been done? And the problem is, in government, it takes way too long. So technology changes and money changes and administrations change. We have to do this fast, which is why we need the partnership from the Congress to give us the money up front. The best ideas and the best technology available in the world, we're going to build in the system. I think, Mr. President, we can do it in 3 years. I think Trump Tower was built in 3 or 3.5 years. I think we could match the Trump Tower time frame.
2 years.
Okay. 2 years. Maybe not that good, but about 3 years. And again, we have to choreograph because again, our towers are operational, keeping planes in the air. So we got to choreograph this, but we can do it in short order. If I can just make one other point, Mr. President, we're $36 trillion in debt. You've never had a DOGE. We've never come in and looked at our government the way Mr. President, you looked at this government and said there's too many people, there's contracts, fraud, waste, and abuse. And so we've had a few bumps in the road as we've gone through this process, but if you look around this room, everybody has seen how the process has evolved, and everyone appreciates some of the insight and technical support that we've gotten to make this government more efficient, to make it more responsive to the American people. And so, again, when you have a new system like this, you'll get some bumps. But things are rolling out. The last 3 weeks have been much, much better as our teams have integrated and we're working to deliver for the American people. And I would say some of the press had made comments last time about what happened in the last meeting. We had a great conversation in the last meeting. Elon and I had a great call after the meeting, and so sometimes the reporting can be a little bit off. I love the analysis that you guys do when you're not in the room, but I would just note that we're working well together, Mr. President, and the whole team here is working well together.
Well, actually, we decided to see you after the cabinet meeting instead of before, and I think that's nice. But if you think about it, I guess never in history has anybody invited you to a cabinet meeting. We're very open and transparent, and we had a very good meeting today. So, I mean, you're standing here, you're seeing what the result of the meeting is. I think we're doing an amazing job for essentially 8 weeks on the job. I think it's there's never been anything like it. Did you have a question, please?
Two, actually, if you don't mind. And thank you for having us.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. One, actually, to follow up on the Attorney General's comments, and then one for you. You said that you're now preparing to prosecute examples of fraud across federal agencies that have been referred to you. Is that what you said?
We are working with a team. We have a team of attorneys in place working with Elon's incredible team, helping us, taking referrals from the cabinet members. You know, these are your tax dollars. And a lot of it is just abuse. A lot of it's waste. But if it's fraud, we are investigating it, and we are looking at multiple cases of fraud throughout the federal government.
One for you, Mr. President. Greenland is confused about the Second Lady and the National Security Advisor visiting this week. They're concerned that this is further provocation, whatever it is you ultimately want for Greenland. Could you further explain why they're going? What is the ultimate end goal when it comes to?
Yeah, well, not provocation. This is friendliness, not provocation. We're dealing with a lot of people from Greenland that would like to see something happen with respect to them being properly protected and properly taken care of. They're calling us. We're not calling them. And we were invited over there, and I thought it would be I have great respect for the wife of our great vice president. I think she's a brilliant woman. She's a very nice woman, and she loves the concept of Greenland. And so she's going there, and I think Marco's going there, and some others are going there. But we've been invited, and they really like the idea because they have been somewhat abandoned, as you know. They haven't been taken good care of. And I think Greenland's going to be something that maybe is in our future. I think it's important. It's important from the standpoint of international security. And if you look at the ships outside of Greenland, you have Russia, you have China, you have lots of different people and lots of different places, and it cannot go on the way it is. It's not going to go on the way it is. I'll make a statement. It's not going to happen. So they're going there, and that's purely friendship.
Who's doing the inviting? You said people.
A lot of people, yeah. People from Greenland are asking us to go there. We have many, many requests from many, many people, some officials too.
Mr. President,
yes,
I ask
please.
you about economic forecasts. I saw one economic forecast coming out from the OECD this past week. They are forecasting stagflation for the United States, a downtick in terms of GDP growth. Do you agree with that forecast? What do you see over the course of 2025 for our?
Well, we inherited a very, very bad and perilous situation from a group of people. Again, we just got here from a group, and this takes a long time to develop, from a group of people that truly didn't know what they were doing. And you see that with not only costs, you see that with all of these fake contracts that have been given out. So we inherited a bad situation, but I think we're going to have an economy that booms. I think when it all kicks in, it's not going to take very long, because some of these people that announce that they're going to spend billions of dollars, I mean, literally, Apple